So, Alexander the Great, one of the most famous figures in ancient history, was apparently a big fan of one summer treat beloved by many to this day. Marco Polo, the Italian explorer and writer, is said to have brought back from Asia a recipe resembling sorbet, a frozen dessert made by mixing sugar-sweetened water with different types of flavoring. This dessert, which was later named cream ice, was a frequent treat at the court of Charles I of England in the 17th century. In France, it was Catherine de' Medici who introduced the beloved frozen dessert soon after she married Henry II. The frozen treat became available for the general public somewhere in the 1660s, when a Sicilian man blended milk, cream, butter, and eggs at Café Procope, the first known café in Paris. Thomas Jefferson himself had a preferred recipe for ice cream, which took a staggering 18 steps to complete. Ice cream has become so important in popular culture that it even has its own laws and regulations to accompany it, to make sure ice cream is always produced with its certain levels of quality. Not every frozen dessert you see out there is, in fact, ice cream. To be commercialized under this name, the Icy Delight needs to contain a minimum of 10% dairy milk fat and mustn't weigh less than 4.5 pounds per gallon. Genuine ice cream doesn't actually need to be too fluffy. In technical terms, that means it must have no more than 100% overrun. So, to get to that specific texture we've all come to know and love, the ice cream base needs to be sufficiently whipped, but only to a certain percentage. Specifically, for every gallon of ice cream base, the end products must not exceed 2 gallons after whipping. Your favorite summer dessert can yet again be broken down into many other subcategories, like reduced fat ice cream, low-fat ice cream, or non-fat ice cream, based on, what do you think, fat percentage. To have a solid idea of what you're ordering each time, it's best to look at the nutritional information of each product. One interesting type of frozen dessert is gelato. Although it literally translates to ice cream in Italian, there are differences between the two again, based on regulations on milk fat content. Gelato normally has less milk fat than ice cream officially should have, but since it has a low overrun, about 20 to 30%, the end result is still dense and rich in texture. The Italians also mention that gelato shouldn't have less than 3.5% of fat. If this doesn't seem complicated enough, the French also bring their own twist to the dessert. French ice cream, also known as frozen custard, apart from the standard ingredients, also needs to have eggs added to the mixture, with no less than 1.4% egg yolk. You've probably mislabeled many other food items, like say raspberries, as they're actually a member of the rose family, along with cherries, apricots, plums, pears, apples, peaches, or blackberries. They are added to this category based on their flowers. They bloom in 5 equal petals arranged around a central core. Bananas are considered berries, while strawberries aren't since they belong to the same rose family. We also share about 50% of our DNA with bananas, which explains why both bananas and certain attractive people can both have appeal. Another common misconception: white chocolate isn't actually chocolate since it doesn't contain any chocolate solids. It's made only from a mixture of sugar, milk products, vanilla, lecithin, and cocoa butter. Parents all over the world don't try to convince their kids to eat broccoli for no reason. On a calorie-by-calorie basis, it turns out that broccoli has nearly as much protein in it as a steak. Now, I'm not convinced parents actually know that, but given the low fat content, broccoli has many other health benefits as opposed to meat. We now see it as the mandatory companion for fries, but at some point in time, ketchup was actually considered to have healing properties. In the 1880s, a doctor based in Ohio indicated that tomatoes could help treat digestive issues, publishing a ketchup-like formula that was later transformed into a pill. Hey, you want to have a pill with those fries? Speaking of French fries, it turns out one of the most popular side dishes in the world isn't actually French. Potatoes served this way actually originated in Belgium, but they're called that because of how they're cut, and maybe also because the name Brussels sprouts was already taken. I'm almost certain there's a jar of peanut butter somewhere in your cupboard, but I'll bet you didn't know how valuable it actually was, and I'm not talking about peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Studies have shown that Americans go through enough peanut butter to coat the floor of the Grand Canyon each year. Just to be a bit more precise here, that's about 500 million pounds. Hey, if somebody did that on YouTube, I'd watch. The pink coloring of salmon isn't always like that by default. Wild salmon is pink due to a large amount of shrimp they consume natively. Farm-raised salmon, however, is generally white, so producers need to add plant-based pigments to get that light pink hue. Carrots weren't originally orange either. The red-yellow tint we are now familiar with comes from a genetic mutation of the well-known vegetable that occurred somewhere in the 16th century. Carrots were initially white or purple. Just like you add ketchup to the side of fries, you're most likely having a dab of wasabi with every plate of sushi. Well, it's most certainly dyed horseradish. The Japanese alternative to horseradish is quite expensive. That's why 99% of restaurants in the US actually use regular horseradish instead. You may see them packed together in the supermarket, but red, green, and yellow peppers aren't actually the same vegetable. You'd need different types of seeds to be able to grow them individually, as they're each their own type of plant species. Did you know 1 in 4 hazelnuts ends up in a Nutella jar? The creamy spread is so popular that scientists are looking into ways to grow hazelnuts in labs to counteract the global shortage. That's something to think about when you ask for an extra topping. Sure, there's an expiration date on each bottle of water, but the water itself doesn't actually expire. The date mentioned there is, in fact, for the bottle itself, since the plastic can eventually leak harmful substances into the water. Ever wondered why airplane food sometimes tastes bland? The chef may not always be to blame. The altitude you're flying at has some effects on your body chemistry, making you taste things differently. You've added it to a salad at least once, but you may be surprised to know that cilantro and coriander are not in fact the same thing. Coriander is what the dried seeds are called, while the leaves and the stems go by cilantro. So now you know. For all the fruit lovers out there, scientists came up with a fruit salad tree. Yep, that's right, a tree that can grow different types of fruit at the same time. They were developed in Australia and can support up to 6 different types of fruit. There's a stone fruit variation that features peaches, plums, nectarines, apricots, and peachcots, and a citrus variation for those who prefer lemons, limes, mandarins, oranges, or even tangelos, pomelos, and grapefruits. You most likely avoid it because it can give you bad breath, but garlic is considered one of the most nutrient-dense foods out there. A single clove of garlic can contain 2% of your vitamin B6 for the whole day. Studies have shown that the chemical that gives garlic its distinctive flavor, called allicin, is good for your health. The only type of food that never spoils when stored properly is honey, or at least the only one we've discovered so far. That's because it contains a high amount of sugar and has a low moisture content. An enzyme created by bees also helps do the trick, as it can suppress any bacterial growth. Of course, if you store your honey the wrong way and expose it to additional moisture, it can go bad. But honey that is sealed and stored correctly technically has no expiration date. Now, if you're just starting out with your cooking skills, you'll be pleased to know mushrooms can't be overcooked. That's because they contain a polymer called chitin. This chemical allows them to remain tender even if you cook them from a few minutes to up to an hour. Hey, just add some butter and garlic. Nobody will ever know.
You decide to try a new coffee brand that has a nice golden packing and proudly says 100% coffee on it. But it tastes nothing like your favorite drink. Don't blame yourself for being the worst barista on the planet. The substance you just purchased might just not be the real thing at all. It's so expensive because of how it's made. Coffee plants can't be hurried to grow. Depending on the type of coffee, it takes a coffee tree about 3 to 5 years to start bearing fruit. Coffee farming is a people-powered industry, from planting to processing. Coffee farms are often huge, so you need many workers to plant all those new trees. And it takes about 2,000 hand-picked Arabica coffee cherries to make a single roasted pound of coffee. If you want to get the best out of the variety of options, don't fall for labels saying 100% pure coffee. If it doesn't say 100% Arabica, they must have mixed in cheaper Robusta beans, which can make your coffee taste bitter. Check the roasted on date for freshness, not the best by date. When a brand offers a gazillion artificial flavors, it's a sign they're not confident in their beans' quality. A good roaster might have a few unique flavors, but not a whole buffet.
In Japan, you'll find wasabi all over the place, but chances are, if you've tried it outside of that country, you've had a fake. True wasabi doesn't come from your regular horseradish plant. It's more like a root vegetable made from the underground stem of the wasabi plant. This stem is grated to make the real wasabi paste. Growing wasabi plants isn't easy, as they only like clear, running stream beds in Japan's mountain river valleys. That's why the real thing is so pricey. Fake wasabi is usually a mix of regular European horseradish disguised as the real deal. You'll find it in squeezable tubes, little packets, or as a powder you mix with water. These products often contain just a tiny bit of the real stuff, usually 1 to 3%. It helps cut costs a lot. If you want to check if you've got real wasabi, check the texture. If it's super smooth and pasty, you're likely dealing with pureed horseradish. But if it's got a gritty feel, like it was freshly grated, it's more likely the real deal. Authentic wasabi is always served fresh because its flavor and zinginess vanish quickly once it's grated. The only Parmesan that you can really call this way gotta come from the Emilia-Romagna region in Italy, especially Parma, or a certain part of Lombardy. There are only about 300 certified dairies in that area that can make genuine Parmigiano Reggiano. And they've got to age it for at least a year to get those super important umami flavor crystals going. Some of it ages for up to 100 months or longer. The authentic Parmesan wheels are marked with a DOP stamp, Denominazione di Origine Protetta, basically saying it's the real deal from the right place. Italian Parmesan is easy to find in most stores, but there are other options that can be cheaper. That's because American-made Parmesan only needs to be aged for 10 months, and some grated blends can have up to 4% fillers, like rice flour or wood pulp cellulose. The legit Parmigiano Reggiano cheese only has 3 ingredients, and one of them is milk from cows raised in the same region. Plus, they've got some strict rules about what those cows can't eat, like fermented grain. Maple syrup fans, this one's for you. Did you know that to produce your favorite pancake topping, artisans have to tap maple trees that can grow more than 5 stories tall, extract sap, and then boil it down? It's an age-old craft, passed down through generations, from indigenous peoples to modern-day syrup makers. But many of the bottles with sticky sweet syrup inside have nothing to do with that process. Pancake syrup, or table syrup, is a mix of corn syrup, caramel coloring, and flavoring. If you see these ingredients on the label, it's a telltale sign you aren't dealing with the real maple syrup. The consistency of your purchase is another giveaway. The authentic maple syrup is runny. That's why you can pour it easily. Pancake syrup is thicker and stickier. The price can't always give away a fake in this case. It can be affordable even for the real product. Another item that often gets counterfeited is designer bags. To make sure you're buying the real thing, give that purse a good feel. If it's supposed to be leather, it better feel and smell like it. Counterfeiters often skimp on quality materials. Check out the zippers, buttons, or any metal parts. They should feel solid, not lightweight or cheap. And of course, no chipping allowed. Look closely at the seams. Sloppy or uneven stitching is a big red flag. The inner lining is another giveaway. Feel it and make sure it matches the brand's quality. Pay attention to the brand logo. Authentic ones are all about the details. The same goes for the label inside the bag. Get familiar with how it should look so you can spot any slip-ups. Check the number and placement of pockets. Each model has its own design. If it doesn't match up, something's fishy. Shady dealings with extra virgin olive oil date back to ancient Rome. Back then, tricksters would sell low-quality oil or mixes under the fancy Evo label. Nowadays, most legit extra virgin olive oil comes from Spain, Italy, or Greece. They produce it by squishing ripe olives without heating or chemicals. Good Evo might cost you around $10 for a 17-ounce bottle. Fraudsters have gone undercover amidst real producers, making it tough to spot the fakes. But you have more chances of finding the real thing if you avoid blend or light varieties on the label. Check the pressed-on date. It should be less than a year old since the oil loses its fruity vibe after a couple of years. If there's a harvest date and details like the producer's name or olive type, it's likely legit. Some high-quality oils note the free fatty acidity, FFA, level, which is a good sign. Don't automatically trust fancy packaging or high prices. Even an expensive bottle can be past its use-by date. If you like to cook, cinnamon, mint, nutmeg, sage, and other spices must always be in your kitchen cabinet. But you can't be sure you've got the real thing unless you're prepared to pay a hefty price for them. When you break it down by the pound, some of them, like vanilla and saffron, are as pricey as precious metals like silver and gold. And where there's value, there's a dark underbelly of fraud. This multi-billion-dollar industry is a playground for tricksters looking to make a quick buck. If you don't want to add something fake to your meals, the best you can do is buy the spices whole and grind them yourself. If possible, try to find a retailer that sells spices in bulk. You'll be able to see them yourself, and you won't miss the aroma of real cinnamon or oregano. If you're planning to buy a designer watch, look closely for any blunders or defects on the watch. Designer watches are usually made with high-quality standards, so things like chipped paint, scratches, or spelling errors are rare. Also, check if the clasp works and if the watch keeps accurate time. Genuine designer watches have precise, clear engraving created by skilled watchmakers. If the lettering looks messy or hard to read, chances are it's a fake. Designer watches are made with valuable metals and intricate parts, so they should feel a bit heavier than they look. If a watch feels surprisingly light, it might be fake. Real luxurious watches have unique serial numbers that should be precisely laser-etched, not sloppily printed. Make sure these numbers match the case and warranty numbers. Simply search online or contact the manufacturer's customer service to confirm you've got the real thing.
Are humans the only creatures on Earth that enjoy eating spicy food? Probably. I mean, it's not like you've ever seen a giraffe ordering a curry takeout at your local restaurant. Well, that might not be completely true. It turns out that tree shrews, these adorable little critters, have a burning passion for spicy food too. Asian researchers stumbled upon this fascinating fact. Tree shrews are the only non-human mammals who intentionally seek out mouth-numbing, tongue-tingling, tear-inducing spicy delicacies. Scientists detected a sneaky genetic mutation in these courageous tree shrews. They feature a certain receptor that is responsible for detecting pain caused by the scorching sensation of capsaicin, the infamous hot chemical found in chili peppers. It's like having a secret superpower that shields them from feeling as much discomfort as the rest of us mere mortals. But how did scientists come to this astonishing revelation? They decided to venture into the wild and looked at 5 wild tree shrews and a group of 6 wild mice, acting as the control group for the test. The team then took notes on how each of these tiny mammals reacted to the fiery capsaicin. No surprises when it came to the mice. They really didn't have a good time. But the tree shrews remained remarkably calm and collected. The secret behind the tree shrews' spice resilience was a single amino acid that sets them apart from their mouse counterparts. While many plants have evolved to deter animals from munching on them by producing pungent chemicals, the tree shrews have managed to outsmart Mother Nature. The scientists behind this study believe that the genetic mutation responsible for the shrew's spice tolerance is an incredible evolutionary adaptation. It allowed them to expand their culinary horizons and survive in diverse environments. For us humans, though, spices aren't a modern discovery. Even back in prehistoric Denmark, our ancestors had a spicy side. Researchers found some ancient pots that were used for cooking around 6,000 years ago. And guess what? They found traces of a peppery, mustard-like flavor. Now, when exactly did humans start seasoning their food? That's a bit of a mystery. Take coriander seeds, for instance, which are heavily featured in many Asian, Middle Eastern, and Mediterranean dishes. They were found at a site in Asia dating back a whopping 23,000 years. Unfortunately, we can't be absolutely sure if they were indeed used to add flavor to food. They might have been just growing there randomly. However, solid evidence has been uncovered that confirms people in Northern Europe were intentionally spicing up their food around 6,100 years ago. This is the earliest known record of spiced food in Europe, and possibly the world. To get this spicy scoop, the researchers examined the leftovers stuck inside 74 cooking pots from ancient sites in Denmark and Germany. These pots had all the chemical signatures of meat or fish, and they even found phytoliths, which are little mineral traces left by food. These phytoliths were similar to the ones found in garlic mustard seeds, a local plant known for its zesty kick, but not much nutritional value. Here's where it gets interesting. There were way more phytoliths in the pot residue than in the surrounding sediment. That means those clever people intentionally brought the garlic mustard from elsewhere and tossed it into the pots. What's even more amazing is that these pots predate the arrival of agriculture in the region. So we're talking about good old hunter-gatherers here. Now, let's ponder this spicy conundrum. Why are humans so obsessed with adding a kick to their cuisine? We've got a couple of theories brewing. One is that even the Neanderthals used plants for their medicinal properties, and the garlic mustard seems to have been used as a disinfectant back in the day. So maybe our ancestors had a knack for combining flavor and health benefits. Another idea suggests that humans started seasoning their food because some spices have antimicrobial properties that protect against food spoilage. In other words, our taste buds might have evolved to love the spice for a good reason. It kept us safe. Others prefer to keep things simple and believe there might not be a functional reason behind our love for spice. It may all come down to the joy of taste. Next time you add a dash of chili to your meal, remember that you're continuing a tradition that goes back thousands of years. Have you ever wondered why spicy food feels like it's setting your taste buds on fire? It's because spicy food contains that mischievous little compound called capsaicin. When you take a bite of that fiery dish, capsaicin latches onto the specific receptors inside your mouth. Now, these receptors weren't initially meant to detect capsaicin at all. They evolved to sense heat, acting like the mouth's own heat detectors, keeping us from munching on foods that could cause harm. But here's the funny part. Capsaicin and VR1 receptors ended up in this relationship by accident. When capsaicin waltzes into the picture and triggers those VR1 receptors, our brain gets a signal that shouts, "Hot alert!" And that's why we perceive spicy food as hot, even though, technically, it doesn't have a high temperature. It's just our brains being tricked into thinking we're eating something that could burn us. Although spicy food doesn't actually burn, our brain falls for the trick and believes we're in some sort of discomfort. So why do we keep going back for more? Scientists have been scratching their heads over this curious phenomenon and uncovered a fascinating explanation tied to our brain's pain relief system. You see, when our brains think we're hurt, it releases endorphins for us to get better as soon as possible. These endorphins not only dull the bad sensation, but also shower us with a nice feeling. It's no wonder we adore spicy food. The spicy saga goes even further. Scientists have been delving into capsaicin's potential beyond the realm of taste buds. They've been exploring its abilities to provide relief and have stumbled upon some intriguing findings. Throughout history and across various cultures, capsaicin has been used to tackle an array of ailments. From fever to different types of aches, capsaicin has made its mark. In certain communities in Peru, they burn leaves containing capsaicin to produce steam, which helps alleviate headaches. In the Dominican Republic, these leaves are ingested as a form of treatment, and in the Philippines, capsaicin-rich fruits are sought after to treat people's joints. Now, you might assume that the spiciness of peppers, for instance, is a clear message from Mother Nature screaming, "Don't eat me, silly human!" That's exactly what scientists initially believed. They thought that pepper plants evolved their fiery flavors to keep us mammals from gobbling up their fruits. However, recent research on wild peppers suggests that deterring big mammals like us is actually just a side gig. The real reason behind their heat is likely their way of defending against much smaller threats. Nasty insects and pesky mold. Back in the 1890s, scientists proposed the direct deterrent hypothesis to explain why peppers evolved to be spicy. According to this theory, peppers wanted to make sure their fruits were feasted upon by birds, not by clumsy creatures like us. You see, birds' heat-sensing nerves are blissfully immune to capsaicin's fiery charms, making them the perfect seed dispersers. The direct deterrent hypothesis took a hit when scientists looked at the natural variation in pepper spiciness. It turns out that the heat levels of pepper species tend to vary, probably because producing capsaicin isn't easy. So if these peppers can get away with being mild, they stop producing the spicy stuff altogether. When scientists ventured into pepper-packed landscapes where both mild and hot peppers grow, they made an intriguing discovery. Mammals, even when faced with milder peppers, don't really fancy eating them. Also, peppers don't crank up the spice levels just because there are more animals around. It's like they're saying, "Hey mammals, you're not the main concern here." Instead, the spiciness of peppers seems to be closely tied to the local climate. Spicier peppers tend to thrive in areas with more rainfall. Why? Because of fungal damage. That's right. Fungi wreak havoc on our beloved peppers. It turns out that mold, not mammals, might be the true reason behind spiciness. From the iconic golden fries to a broken ice cream machine, here are 10 fast food secrets that the fast food industry doesn't really want you to know. Chicken nuggets. Those golden crispy bites you can get from fast food chains. They're even on the menu of school lunches. What if I tell you that they aren't actually made entirely out of chicken? Researchers took chicken nugget samples from unnamed fast food chains and analyzed them. They said that one sample, for instance, contained only 40% and another 50% of meat. The rest? Well, you're eating mouthfuls of things like fat, connective tissue, and bone spicules. Many fast food companies grind the meat with that stuff. They make mechanically formed orbs of chicken parts. Why? Perhaps it's because this method is cheaper and more profitable. Millions of restaurants worldwide have chicken nuggets on their menu. So, scientifically, it's not fair to say all nuggets are made this way, but a lot of studies imply so. The more the meat is processed, the more you lose the good stuff, like vitamin B6 and B12. The bitter truth is that companies add stuff, such as sodium, to the mixed paste. Sodium is added to get a better flavor. It's one of the ingredients that makes nuggets so yummy. Our bodies need sodium, but not too much of it. Unfortunately, most junk food contains more than our bodies can handle. So it might be a safe option to avoid eating these sorts of foods frequently. Chains dip their nuggets into tempura batter and fry them in hydrogenated oil. That's also not a green light regarding health, but this is how they catch the golden tint. They put additional stuff in nuggets. What about grilled chicken? In recent years, we've seen brands highlighting grilled chicken as a healthier option. Research has been done about grilled chicken too. And the same approach is applied here. Take chicken samples from iconic fast food companies and send those to labs for analysis. The results show that companies are misleading people by advertising these products by labeling them as healthy, natural, and 100% chicken breast. In reality, a couple of things are added to the meat to make it tender and juicy. Plus, these additives make it easier to cook the meat, freeze and transport it, and reheat it later without losing too much moisture. The drawback of all these additives is that they affect the nutritional value of the chicken breast. These ingredients aren't the healthiest for us. We should especially watch out for 3 things. The first one is again sodium. Fast food samples had 7 to 10 times more sodium than home-cooked chicken breast. Imagine you have a cheeseburger, but you say no to yourself and try to pick a less harmful menu item. Yet, some chicken sandwiches have the same amount or even more sodium than a cheeseburger with medium fries. The second thing you need to watch out for is phosphate additives. These additives allow the protein to conjoin more water. This means the white meat in the sandwich will appear juicier to you. Any word you see in the ingredients section that contains phos is a phosphate additive, so it's best to avoid them. The last thing you should avoid is sugars and starches, not just in grilled chicken, but pretty much in all fast food products. Oh, that's hard to digest, I admit. Cornstarch, sugar, malt, they come with grilled chicken breast. Buns, and even some fries have sugar too. Everywhere I look, it's sugar. You see, home-cooked chicken has 0 grams of carbs, but the study samples had added sugar and up to 10% of the calories in the chicken breast comes from there. So what's the moral of this story? If you're a health-conscious diner, you should maybe go for other options. There are secret recipes from companies like KFC and Coca-Cola. No company wants to share the ingredients that make their food irresistible, but with a little research, you can decipher many things. You want to know the secret of McDonald's fries? It's written on their website. They add beef flavoring to the frying oil. This may sound weird, but apparently, that's a known practice amongst chefs and restaurants. Duck fat has also been used as a flavor, for example, in high-end restaurants. I'm a fries lover, so I added another fact about fries. Sadly, they're even saltier than you think. Experts suggest that a grown-up should consume at most 2,300 milligrams of sodium daily. Guess the McD's large fries sodium number. At least 400 milligrams. Classic fries from Burger King have 732 milligrams, and Five Guys take the level even higher with 962 milligrams of sodium. Next time, maybe you can ask workers to go easy on the salt as a solution. Picture this. You're in a hurry, but your tummy says, "Feed me, or I'll affect your mood and make life miserable for you." For a quick snack, you enter a fast food chain restaurant. You order your favorite burger. It looks and smells as if it's just been taken from the grill and served. Nope. They have different types of grills designed for this that can cook meat super quickly. Sorry to bear the bad news, but those perfect grill marks on your burger aren't real tools. The factory adds them. If you want to know how clean an eatery is, look under the ice chute of the soda machine in places where you can get your own drink. There you go, Inspector. You solved the case. Various studies say that if such machines aren't cleaned correctly, dirty, contaminated ice can lead to some health problems. There could be mold or bacteria there. Ew! The process of cleaning ice machines isn't easy. The same thing applies to ice cream machines too. Rumor has it that those ice cream machines aren't out of order. Employers just cannot find time to clean them properly. Now, what's the best time to get a good and fresh meal? Here are 2 opinions, and they both have solid reasonings. The first team recommends avoiding ordering grilled food in chains from 7 to after midnight. Many former employees say that sometimes they had taquitos or hot dogs prepared at around 4 or 5 a.m., but kept waiting to serve them till around midnight. That's not healthy. The other team says you should order between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. or between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. to get the freshest meal. Since it's going to be around lunch and dinner time, there'll be circulation and you can get decent food. Fast food companies have marketing, design, and psychological tricks to lure you in and make you order. Yet, they don't want you to stay inside for too long. If you were dining in mood lighting, You know under dim lamps and candlelight, you would take your time to eat. As the name suggests, you should be fast like your food in chain restaurants. They have fluorescence and they're in full light. Similarly, the floors and tables have reflective surfaces that make food look nice and bright. Plus, music is usually fast and loud. It's done to prevent you from spending hours there. Yet, they want you to take advantage of the first 20 minutes after your purchase. The faster you eat, the longer it will take you to feel full. Scientists say it takes about 20 minutes for our stomachs to inform our brain, okay, now I'm full. It's a good idea to eat in a clean area, but most of these companies are using cleaning products that have super strong chemicals. Assume that the staff cleaned the place at the end of their shift. They wiped down the soda machine and grill surface, and then you showed up early the next day. You may get some of that chemical residue on your food compared to other customers visiting the place later in the day. The vegan patty may not be 100% vegan. I'm talking about the grill, not the meat itself. In most of the chains, vegan burgers are cooked on the same grill as meat burgers. Do you have fast food chain secrets you want to share? Tell them to fellow Brightsiders in the comments.
Picture this. It's a cloudy, misty morning in the middle of winter. Tom wakes up, a bit nervous for the day ahead. He's leaving on a long journey through uncharted waters. His captain says they will try to leave England and make it all the way to the Americas. He's ready and packed to leave his house when his wife reminds him to take the biscuits he had spent the night preparing. Let's zoom in on these biscuits right here. They look a bit strange, don't they? These are called ship's biscuits, and they were literally the biscuits that sailors ate during long voyages at sea. A ship's biscuit could go years without going bad. I know that sounds impossible, but the secret is in the ingredients and baking methods. When sailors departed, they didn't know how long they would go without setting foot on land again, so they needed to be ready, food-wise. Otherwise, they could perish from extreme hunger. So bakers came up with this simple biscuit. It's mostly made out of 3 ingredients: salt, flour, and a bit of water. The idea is that the dough stayed as stiff as it could. Then, bakers would put them in the oven for hours, at very low temperatures. The purpose of this slow baking was to take off all the moisture in the biscuits. Even if you're not an experienced sailor, you might suspect that moisture is the enemy of food preservation. It makes stuff get moldy and attracts insects and other animals. Plus, a ship is already an extremely moist environment. So the biscuits had to go on the countercurrent of all of that. A ship's biscuit can go 6, 7, 8 years without going bad. The little holes you see on them help to get the moisture out during the cooking process. A sailor like Tom, medium-sized, would get a portion of 6 to 8 ship's biscuits per day. They were extremely nutritious and satiated a person's hunger. Now, this was a type of survival food. It wasn't meant to be super pleasurable, yummy, or even give you all the nutrients you needed. Just the basics. Now, do you have any idea what life was like in the 18th century? If you think about a city like New York, there were only about 18,000 people living there. For comparison, today the city hosts more than 8 million people. Back then, if someone had to travel from New York to Boston, there wouldn't be any of the convenience stores there were along the way. I mean, there weren't even roads as we know them now. So, people needed to make food provisions. And this is where portable soup came in handy. If you imagined a boiling pot of meat and veggies, I'm sorry to inform you, you are wrong. Portable soup is hard and condensed. It looks like this. Portable soup is a type of solidified broth, a very, very condensed substance made essentially of meat. Think about it. It's convenient, it's light, it doesn't take up much space, but it's extremely hard to make. The best meat to make portable soup is one with a lot of collagen, like beef shank, and the secret is slow cooking. You can't lose sight of it though, because if it boils up, you ruin the whole thing. While cooking the meat, it will release its taste in the water in the pot, and after a few hours, it's safe to take the beef out. The remaining water will be rich in nutrients and fats, and once you reduce that down for about 18 to 24 hours, you'll get a gelatine-like nutritional substance. Once this cools down, it turns into a tablet of sorts. It's pretty amazing to witness the entire transformation process, but hey, This dark tablet is really satiable. And to eat it, you just needed to find some hot water and put the meat tablet inside of it. It would release all the condensed nutrients in it, giving you a warm, hearty meal. Here's a trick question for you. Do you know why hamburgers are called hamburgers if they are not made out of ham? Apparently, it has to do with the city they were first invented in, the city of Hamburg in Germany. But it wasn't what we are used to today. I mean, they didn't even use ketchup. Well, at least not the tomato ketchup we use now. But did you know that other types of ketchup have existed throughout history? As weird as it may sound, back in the 18th century, people ate mushroom ketchup. For your information, if you look up ketchup in some dictionaries, it is by definition a sauce made out of mushrooms. It has nothing to do with tomatoes. I wonder where people got that idea from. Anyways, to make it you can use any type of mushrooms. Even shiitake if you're feeling fancy. The idea is to smash them, cook them, and add a bunch of spices to the mix. I'm talking clove, nutmeg, ginger, pepper, and whatever else your palate wishes for. And in case you're wondering what our ancestors ate it with, I have one word for you: meat. They would pour mushroom ketchup over a nice piece of steak, for example. Like a gravy sauce, or something like it. Now, if this just left your mouth full of water, I have good news. You can still find mushroom ketchup in Great Britain. It's just North America that kind of forgot it. Neat, huh? And what did people eat back in the day when they were feeling unwell? Today, we have a concept of food I particularly love: comfort food, which is something to eat when you are feeling down and sad. But then, on the days you're feeling sick, what do you eat? I immediately think of a warm soup or something nutritious and light. Our forefathers drank something called posset. Now, posset could be described as an eggnog with some sweets added into it. Its recipe can be traced down to as early as the 15th century. The drink was considered such a reliable remedy that Shakespeare even used it as a poison in Macbeth. Here's another quick pop quiz for you. Why do we say the proof is in the pudding? This famous expression simply means that you'll only know the true value of something once you experience it for yourself. The expression started to be used back in the 1600s, but there's an important thing to note here. In Britain, pudding is not the sweet dessert known by many in America. Rather, it's a savory dish, much like a pie. I guess it's safe to say that the British are good at turning almost anything into pie. From apple pie to pumpkin pie, chicken pot pie, and so on. Now, in the 18th century, they had something called beefsteak pie. This was an incredibly popular dish back then, but somewhere along the way we lost the habit of making it. Sure, you can find steak and kidney pudding today, but it's got all sorts of stuff in it, such as potatoes, carrots, and thick gravy. Up until the 19th century, people ate the stripped-down version of this dish, which was basically made out of richly flavored meat. They say breakfast is the most important meal of the day. If you're in the US, you might eat some avocado on toast or a rich bowl of cereal. If you're in Vietnam, you might enjoy a warm bowl of broth soup or rice. But if you were eating breakfast in 18th century England, or even the United States, you would get something like this. This is the old school version of what we know as bacon and eggs. Except that back then, it was called collops and eggs. According to the traditional Hannah Glass recipe, straight from the most famous cookbooks of back then, the egg wasn't fried or boiled, it was poached, and the bacon was probably not as processed as we eat them today. A little toast was added on the side, and there you had it. The perfect start for a long day.
Wow, it's lunchtime. You choose a delicious-looking piece of chicken, but oh no, it ends up on the floor instead of your mouth. You quickly pick it up and eat it anyway, because there is the 5-second rule, you know. The bad bacteria simply won't have enough time to hop on your food off the floor if you're fast enough. But is it real, or is it just an urban legend? Some folks like to credit the famous Genghis Khan, the founder and ruler of the Mongol Empire, for the whole thing. According to the tale, if food fell on the floor at banquets, it was fair game as long as Khan said so. His food was supposedly so special that it was good for anyone, no matter where it landed. Back in the day, people didn't know much about those pesky microorganisms and how they could make us sick. So, eating dropped food wasn't really considered taboo. They figured if they wiped off the visible dirt, it was good to go. And that's how the Khan rule came to be. Hey, maybe they just had outstanding immune systems. Meanwhile, let's fast forward to the queen of culinary TV herself, Julia Child. As she whipped up mouth-watering meals on her show, The French Chef, some viewers claimed they saw her drop lamb, chicken, or even a turkey on the floor. But in reality, it was a potato pancake that landed on the stovetop, not the floor. In the spirit of having some fun in the kitchen, Julia famously said, "But you can always pick it up, and if you are alone in the kitchen, who is going to see?" And just like that, the misremembered story became part of popular culture. In real life, when your food hits the floor, it's like a bacteria magnet. That chicken piece is bound to pick up some unwanted microbial hitchhikers. You just can't give your fallen lunch a quick sanitizing session like you would with your hands. As for the 5-second rule, it's not all so simple. Some foods may have a better chance of survival after taking a tumble. Researchers from Rutgers University discovered that moisture, surface type, and contact time all play a role in the degree of cross-contamination. Foods with high moisture levels, like juicy watermelon, are the biggest culprits for contamination. That means they attract more bacteria than any other food tested. And not all environments and surfaces are created equal. Carpet had a low transfer rate in the experiment. Stainless steel and wood had higher transfer rates. In a different study, researchers swabbed the floors around the University of Illinois in the lab, hall, dormitory, and cafeteria to see how many organisms they could find. They were surprised to see very few microorganisms. It was probably because most malicious bacteria like Salmonella, Listeria, or E. coli can't survive without moisture, and the floors were all dry. But even on dry, sterile surfaces, germs relocated onto cookies and gummy bears in less than 5 seconds. For some foods, it takes less than 1 second for the transfer to begin. So, the 5-second rule doesn't really rule after all. It's more of an urban legend and a psychological trick your mind plays on you. Experimental psychologists explain that when it comes to decision-making, we humans don't always go through a rigorous risk-benefit analysis. Nah, we rely on our brain's trusty sidekicks called heuristics. These little shortcuts help us make lightning-fast decisions based on whatever info we've got at hand. Sometimes these shortcuts can lead us in the wrong direction though, like in the case of germs. Those are invisible little troublemakers, and food is real and valuable. So when you drop a precious piece of food on the floor, say a yellow peanut M&M, your brain goes like, "Hey, I can't see any germs, so it must be safe to snatch it up." Not every floor snack will make you sick, but it also depends on you. Our immune systems, especially in the very young and the very old, can be a bit more fragile and vulnerable. So it's crucial not to pass on this questionable habit to the little ones. Remember, they're always watching. Another popular food-related myth is that carbs are always bad for you. In reality, some carbs are pretty important because they're converted into fuel for our bodies. You can find those complex carbs, as they're called, in plant-based foods. They're the ones that keep our digestive system happy and our metabolism in check. The real villains are the simple carbs. Manufacturers add them to processed foods like starches and sugars. When we gobble them up, they quickly turn into blood sugar, causing all sorts of havoc. Think sudden spikes, feeling hungry again in no time, and some more serious consequences for your health. The good carbs come packed with nutritional goodies like fiber and bran, which makes them digest slower and release glucose gradually. To make smarter carb choices, try going for whole grain bread alternatives and swap soda for sparkling water. You can also try the plate method. Fill half your plate with fiber-rich, starch-free veggies. Reserve a quarter for starchy delights like potatoes or a fruity treat. And the last quarter is for proteins. Fish, poultry, beans, nuts, eggs, and lentils should become your new dietary besties. Now, frozen or canned fruits and veggies aren't useless like the rumor has it. Studies have shown that frozen, dried, juiced, or canned plant-based foods can be just as nutritious as their fresh counterparts. You just need to keep an eye out for any sneaky added ingredients like sugars, saturated fats, or sodium. High temperatures during the canning process can cause some vitamins, like C and B, to take a hit. But those vitamins can be a bit sensitive to heat and air in general, so they might leave even during regular cooking and storage at home. Some canned foods, like tomatoes and corn, actually release more antioxidants when they're heated up. Now, have you ever tried adding celery to your diet just because eating it is supposed to burn more calories than you take in? Experts say that negative calorie foods are nothing more than a fantastical idea. Sure, the process of munching and digesting celery burns a few calories, but not a significant amount. There may be around 10 calories in a hefty celery stick, but the body only uses 1/5 of that to process it. So it's still a calorie-plus situation. Plus, you'll unlikely survive just on celery, and it's often a gateway to more yummy foods like cream cheese or peanut butter. Hey, tell me about it. Meanwhile, high-fiber, water-dense fruits and veggies, like celery, can indeed have value as weight loss allies. They fill up your stomach and increase satiety, preventing you from gorging on more calories later. But they won't magically burn off the calories you've already consumed. Some people claim that certain foods or beverages make your body work harder. For example, your body needs to warm up cold water to a toasty 98 degrees Fahrenheit. But there's no solid research to support the idea that cold water drinkers burn significantly more calories. Maybe a measly 5 calories if you're lucky. Caffeine, guanine, taurine, and green tea extracts have been touted for their metabolism-boosting properties. But again, we're talking about a tiny boost that could potentially result in losing around 10 pounds over a year. So, looks like the best way to keep your calories under control is to consume fewer of them than you burn through exercise, not just digestion. Carbonated water isn't any worse than its still version. When carbon dioxide and water get together, they chemically react to create a weak acid called carbonic acid. It tickles the same nerve receptors in your mouth as mustard. That's why you get that delightful and prickly sensation. Although carbonated water is a bit acidic, drinking it won't make your entire body acidic. Your kidneys and lungs step in to remove any excess carbon dioxide from your system. And it's not terrible for your tooth enamel. One study found that sparkling mineral water had only a slight impact on enamel compared to still water. It was a whopping 100 times less damaging than a sugary soft drink. So keep your bubbly drink sugar-free, and you should be safe and healthy.
Bet you've never heard of corrugation. It's a system that may lie hidden in your pantry right now. Ever notice those bumps on food cans? That's exactly what they're called. And they're not just for aesthetics. First off, they make the can extra strong. That's because they can help it from cracking during the manufacturing process. Plus, these corrugations come in handy during delivery, acting like a shield to make sure there's no spillage. They're also useful in the long run because they help keep the cans in their original shape. Even when things get too hot or too cold, these corrugations let them breathe a bit. They expand and contract without breaking the metal. You may not notice any cracks on regular cans, but even the tiniest of openings can leave a way for nasty bacteria to get in contact with the food. Not to mention, they create this little air gap, so when you pop the can open, everything slides out smoothly, without you having to put in that much effort. You know what also doesn't require much effort? Hitting that subscribe button and liking this video. You know there's a plant out there that's so eager to reach the sun, you can hear it grow? Rhubarb, just before it's picked from the fields, soaks up all the sun rays it can get to make glucose. After this sunbathing session, it gets transported to dark sheds. Inside, it keeps on growing and uses the stored glucose as fuel. Nothing out of the ordinary so far, but in that dark, cozy, and warm place, rhubarb starts acting weird. That environment pushes the plant to stretch itself out in hopes it will find sun rays again. It happens so fast that you can actually hear the buds and stalks making noise as they pop open. To make sure this process goes smoothly, there's no light allowed. If light hits the rhubarb at this point, it will start photosynthesizing again and go bitter. Speaking of everyday groceries, you might have noticed that veggie bags come with some green stripes. Know that it's a sneaky optical trick. Those stripes fool our eyes into believing the veggies look way greener than they are. And it's not just veggies that get this special packaging. Oranges are often sold in red mesh bags for the same reason. Lemons? They go for yellow or green bags for that same pop of color. If your cooking skills aren't that good and you're just afraid you're going to mess up dinner yet again, stick to mushrooms. That's because they're almost impossible to overcook. Unlike other vegetables that turn into mush when overcooked, mushrooms are way more resistant. They've got this interesting substance called chitin, a molecular structure that works like an armor. So you can cook them forever. They won't burn. Donuts don't have holes in them because it's easier for you to pick them up. If you've ever tried to make them at home, you might have noticed that when you fry the dough, the outside gets done quickly, thanks to the hot oil. If you want the inside to look just as good, you have to keep it in the oil way longer, but then the outside would get too brown. Thanks to that middle hole, the heat gets to both sides equally, cooking up a flawless donut. Here's how that small piece of paper makes it into your fortune cookie. First, they bake these cookies flat, like pancakes. Then, while they're still warm and bendy, they sneak in those tiny messages. As the cookies cool down, they toughen up and keep their shape, trapping the fortune inside like a tasty time capsule. One legend has it that these Asian treats were initially intended to help people send all sorts of secret messages without causing any suspicion. Here's a little tip for whenever you're buying lunch at a fast food place. Skip the word extra when you're ordering. The moment you speak that term, you're tempting the employees to charge more. Instead, go for something like, "A little more, please," when you're getting a special burrito bowl. According to a UK study, cheese is the most stolen of foods worldwide. It's estimated that around 4% of all cheese just vanishes from stores. And no, it's not mice doing the stealing, it's people. Why? Because cheese is becoming more and more valuable. The price of cheese is constantly going up, and sneaky thieves are trying to make easy money by simply taking it from the racks. It's not just cheese, though. Other interesting items on the thieving list include fresh meat, chocolate, and seafood. Ferrero, the company behind those luscious jars of Nutella, needs about 25% of the world's hazelnuts every year. So if you think about it, 1 in 4 hazelnuts ends up in a chocolatey jar. The manufacturers get the nuts from Turkey, Italy, and Chile, making sure they get them delivered from both the northern and southern hemispheres to keep things fresh. Nutella's impact on the economy is even bigger than you'd imagine. Because of this demand, the price of hazelnuts went through the roof. In 2014, a frost hit Turkey's hazelnuts, supply got halved, and prices were even higher. Now, even places like New Jersey are trying to grow those Nutella-worthy nuts. When you imagine someone trying to sneak something into space, your first thought wouldn't be a sandwich. But back in 1965, during a Gemini mission, astronaut John Young brought a corned beef sandwich on board, going against NASA rules. He hid it in his spacesuit pocket before blastoff. About 2 hours into the 5-hour trip, he went to the mission commander and offered him this unlawful treat. The commander, being a good sport, took it, and they shared a quick, savory moment. He even put the unfinished sandwich in his own spacesuit pocket to avoid crumbs making a mess of the spacecraft. Meanwhile, the official NASA-approved food was waiting patiently in a box nearby. Surely, radishes aren't your first pick when it comes to salad ingredients, but they have quite an interesting history too. These mustard, broccoli, cabbage, and cauliflower cousins have been grown and eaten for longer than you'd imagine, even before the Romans were famous in ancient Egyptian times. In fact, radishes were used as currency for the people who built the pyramids, alongside onions and garlic. You'd think the English are champions when it comes to drinking tea, but you'd be wrong. Turkey is in fact the tea capital of the world. Every Turk drinks an average of 1,300 cups of tea each year. On a regular day, they're sipping on 3 to 5 cups, but when winter hits, they can reach 10 cups a day. Locals claim tea is like a social custom for them. It's more than just a hot beverage. It's an excuse to sit down, enjoy the atmosphere, and connect with loved ones. When it comes to types, black tea is preferred. There might be a magical drink hidden in your fridge. It's tonic water, and it might be able to glow in the dark. If you're curious, test it out with some ultraviolet light. The secret behind this glow is pretty simple. Tonic water has quinine, a chemical that lights up under certain conditions. Quinine was used back in the day to treat certain health problems. The stuff was so bitter that some people started mixing it with sugar and soda water. In simple terms, things glow because they absorb light energy, gets all excited, and then releases it as visible light. Quinine in tonic water absorbs and releases energy, making your drink look like it's from a fairy tale. There's an interesting connection between what we hear and what we taste. Scientists investigated and found that people worldwide link certain sounds with specific flavors, and they call it cross-modal correspondence. High-pitched sounds match up with sweet and sour tastes, while the lower, jarring sounds go hand in hand with bitterness. If it's staccato, think crunchy, and if it's smooth and flowing, think creamy. Some even found music that can enhance the taste of chocolate. In this study, when people listened to a high-pitched, sweet soundtrack while eating chocolate, they thought it was sweeter than when they'd heard a lower, more dissonant soundtrack.
Over 100 years ago, an 11-year-old boy left his drink on a porch during a cold night. The glass was filled with powdered soda dissolved in water and a stirring stick to mix it up. 20 years later, Frank Epperson, that very forgetful boy, presented his accidental invention, the popsicle, in a California park. There's no record of the original popsicle flavor, but among the very first were cherry, the most popular one, lemon, orange, banana, watermelon, grape, and even root beer. Chocolate chip cookies are somewhat younger than popsicles, having been invented in the 1930s. Ruth Wakefield, the owner of a popular restaurant named the Toll House Inn, is considered to be the inventor of these scrumptious cookies. There are various stories behind this invention. One story claims that Ruth ran out of baker's chocolate and decided to replace it with some basic semi-sweet chocolate, expecting it would melt completely, but it didn't. Another story says some chocolate just accidentally fell into the batter. Ruth denied the accidental origin of her cookies, claiming that it was all done deliberately. There are many legends behind the creation of the potato chip. One claims they were invented in 1853 by a chef at a luxurious New York restaurant. French fries were one of the specials at this restaurant, and people seemed to love them. But there was one customer who wasn't satisfied with the quality, complaining they were too thick. When the chef, George Crumb, not crummy at all, cooked thinner French fries, the picky customer complained again. George deliberately made his next batch of fries paper thin. These fries were so thin, it was impossible to eat them with cutlery. Surprisingly, the finicky eater loved the dish. The chips recipe spread, and within a few decades, potato chips could be found in all the American grocery stores, turning from a hot dish to a fast snack. Worcestershire sauce is another product that wasn't invented deliberately. Two English chemists, John Willie Lee and William Henry Perrins, simply forgot about some barrels in the pharmacy basement for a couple of years. The first mixture they had made was totally inedible due to super strong flavor. But when they forgot some barrel of the mixture in the basement, it became fermented. When the chemists rediscovered the barrels and were curious to try it, they found that the taste had mellowed. This condiment is now used to intensify even those dishes that originally didn't have it. For example, chili con carne. Worcestershire sauce is part of the fifth flavor, umami, or savoriness, which explains its rich taste. Tofu, or bean curd, was invented centuries ago. One of its origin theories is that tofu was first created by a Chinese prince. Another theory claims that tofu appeared as a result of mixing boiled ground beans and sea salt. The salt was quite impure and probably contained calcium and magnesium. These ingredients let the bean mixture produce its curd-like consistency. One more legend says that some nigiri, a sort of evaporated sea salt, was accidentally dropped into soy milk. Today, doctors tell you to stay away from Coca-Cola, but it was surprisingly invented by John Pemberton, who had a medical degree and was a pharmacist. Pemberton's French wine coca was initially used as a remedy for severe pains, headache, and as a nerve tonic. In 1886, a prohibition law was introduced, and John had to change the recipe to remove the alcohol. One thing was left unchanged though, the cola nut that gave the drink its trademark flavor. Some legends say that John only accidentally added carbonated water to the new recipe, but in fact, he knew exactly what he wanted to do. Pemberton thought bubbles were a savory alternative to alcohol. John's Cola is definitely the Coke precursor, but today's drink differs from the original Pemberton's recipe. The sandwich was invented by accident too. Back in the 1700s, John Montagu, the 4th Earl of Sandwich, ordered his valet to make him a simple dish that could be eaten with no cutlery at all. He asked the valet to tuck some meat in between 2 loaves of bread. Lord Sandwich was particularly addicted to playing cards, and this dish let him eat without stopping the game. The cards didn't get greasy either. People started asking to bring the same as sandwich to their games, and soon the dish had its common name. The tomato ketchup we eat today is such a modified version that it actually has nothing to do with original ketchup recipe. You can trace its roots back to the 17th century, when the Chinese mixed pickled fish and spices, calling it a word that sounded a bit like ketchup, and which meant the brine of pickled fish. The English first tried this sauce about 100 years later. The British version featured mushrooms, shallots, and even walnuts. Later, the word ketchup changed its meaning and could be used for any dark-colored sauce. The first tomato ketchup had anchovies among its ingredients, which hints back to its relation to the Chinese fish sauce. Nachos aren't some ancient Mexican food. They were invented less than 100 years ago. Ignacio Anaya, nicknamed Nacho, is said to have invented this dish in the 1940s. Ignacio was a chef, and one day a regular customer asked if Ignacio could bring her and her 3 friends something different as a snack. He saw how hungry the ladies were and decided to cook something quick for them. He had to improvise using available ingredients. So, he grabbed some fried tortillas, grated loads of cheese on top of them, and heated the dish from above. To make the dish more savory, he added some jalapeno peppers on top. The very regular customer asked the name of the unusual snack. Ignacio didn't think long and said, "Nachos Special." Cheese puffs used to be a waste product in the 1930s. Edward Wilson noticed some oozing corn in one of the machines at a factory that produced flake food for animals. Those ribbons seemed interesting, so Edward decided to take them home and try to season them. He also noticed that the puffy corn hardened if it was exposed to air. The experiment turned out to be a success, so it was later developed into a world-famous snack. Now, instant noodles weren't invented by mistake, but there were several mistakes while inventing them. The main idea was to create something with a long shelf life. After several unsuccessful attempts, Momofuku Ando invented the method of preserving the noodles. They were processed in various ways, like steamed, dehydrated, fried in hot oil, and seasoned. And instant noodles used to be a luxury product, since they cost way more than the fresh noodles everyone was used to. Another product that was invented unwittingly is yogurt. It first appeared in Central Asia thousands of years ago. Some herders stored milk in a place with an abundance of bacteria without knowing it. The milk was fermented, and it resulted in a thicker texture and flavor change. One of the herders wasn't scared of that kind of dish and tried it. Nothing bad happened to him, so other people started eating it too. Today, pink lemonade has that nice color because of grape juice or added colorants. But there are two legends of how it was invented, and both feature circus workers. The first story alleges that Henry Allott, who worked in a circus, unwittingly dropped a few red cinnamon candies in the lemonade, which gave it that vibrant pink color. The other story is gross. It claims that circus worker Pete Conklin one day ran out of water for lemonade and instead used the water from the tub where one of his colleagues had washed her red stockings. The color of the pants turned the water pink. Pete added some sugar, slices of lemon, and acid. He called it strawberry lemonade. The customers liked it a lot, and his sales doubled. Yes, the people were panting for the stuff. The tarte tatin, which is a caramelized upside-down version of an apple pie, was cooked for the very first time by mistake. Two sisters, Stephanie and Carolyn Tatin, ran a hotel in the 1800s. One day, Stephanie wanted to cook a simple apple pie, but she stewed the apples in butter for too long. To conceal her mistake, she put the crust on top of the apples and put it in the oven. When she took the pie out of the oven, she noticed several burn marks. It was a bad cooking day. She didn't want the guests to notice, so she flipped the pie over and presented it as a brand new recipe. Surprisingly, the guests just loved the pie, which soon became their signature dessert. Okay, gotta go. I'm really hungry.
Is this safe to eat? We sometimes see strange dots on our potatoes and wonder if we should just throw them away. Here are 10 eat or toss facts. Did you know that every year 119 billion pounds of food is wasted only in the United States? To put it in perspective, this number means nearly 40% of all food in America is wasted. People throw away food if they don't have confidence in the ingredients. They're being cautious, and it makes sense. But what if the food is safe to eat and only looks weird? The first item on the list is beef. When it comes to meat, people naturally get extra cautious. Imagine you buy some raw beef in the store. Later on, you realize it's got some brown spots. If you toss it immediately, hear me out. This is normal. In fact, you can see brown layers also inside the beef. Bright red color equals fresh meat, huh? Not necessarily. When the meat is first cut, it's maroon. If the meat is quickly vacuum packaged, it will keep that shade. But if the meat is exposed to air for like 15 minutes, then oxygen will cause a change in the look to red. The redness can turn brown when the biochemical reaction starts. This can take a few hours. Workers at the grocery stores grind the meat several times a day to achieve that bright red color because they know consumers are cautious about maroon-looking beef. If the beef is wrapped in an oxygen-permeable plastic, it turns bright red after exposure to oxygen. As long as the meat smells and feels fresh, and if it's been stored properly, it should be safe to eat. Have you ever come across dark lines under a shrimp shell? This one has a similar story to beef. Black lines on your shrimp's flesh are related to a natural phenomenon. They gradually occur after shrimps are taken from the water. Meat is exposed to oxygen, and the blackness gets more visible over time. Here also, the pattern of the animal itself can be a factor. These black lines can be a naturally occurring discoloration on the shrimp. Think of cats. They also have different color patterns, but they're the same in terms of species. Next time, you can conduct a mini experiment in your kitchen. Put a couple of shrimp side by side and observe the mild differences in the shrimp's color patterns. Shrimp will have a distinct bad odor when it's no longer edible, so if it smells and tastes fresh, don't toss it. Should you eat moldy yogurt? That green substance on the surface doesn't look appealing at all. But if you scoop it out, you seem to have clean yogurt underneath. The short answer is toss it. The mold could be seen on the top only, but it has probably gone deep. Not to mention that it'll taste bad. Many molds are harmless, but some produce toxic substances. green mold is a type of penicillium. Does this word sound familiar? That's the same type of mold used in the antibiotic penicillin. Don't get too excited. Eating moldy yogurt won't magically cure bacterial infections. It only spoils your dairy product. In 2013, there was an outbreak related to one line of yogurts. The company handed the products to stores as usual. After some time, they received customer complaints. They said that the yogurt looked like yogurt soup and tasted really old. Turns out that a type of fungus probably released some carbon dioxide. It made the product fizzy and bloating. Ugh. The company and another independent scientist both said that this fungus in question wasn't usually harmful to people. Yet, more than 200 people reported becoming affected by it. So, these sorts of things can still happen. You should trust your spidey sense. If you've ever been lucky enough to see some mold in a freshly opened package, reach out to the manufacturer. You'll potentially save others from facing the same scenery by notifying the company about a systemic issue and preventing potential future product waste. Plus, the company probably wants to make amends and either reimburse your sad yogurt with a happy one, or better, they'll give you coupons for free products. Why do avocados sometimes have brown dots inside? Technically, it's edible, but you might not want to eat it. Avocados are a source of many vitamins like C, E, K, and B6, as well as healthy stuff like magnesium, potassium, and more. The avocado works hard to become such a health storage. Nutrients, water, and sugars wander around this fruit. Yes, technically, avocado is classified as a fruit. Anyway, avocados have their own transport channels, like veins. These channels are normally invisible to us. Until something goes out of the ordinary, the avocado may be stored in too cold temperatures for a longer time than it should. As a result, the tissue cells might be weakened and start to deteriorate. Experts say that after the fruit is harvested, if it stays in the refrigerator for a few weeks before you buy it, vascular browning can occur. This phenomenon becomes visible after you keep the avocado at room temperature for a few days. Don't be hard on yourself, it's not because of you. So, should you eat it or toss it? You can eat the brown dotted avocados, but you may want to taste them first. They might not taste good compared to a regular one. What about the white area under the potato peel? Eat or toss? This area is also like dark bruise marks, but it's not black. If the outer layer of the potato looks normal, that odd-looking white knot is not mold. The moldy potatoes deteriorate. They'll get softer, wrinkled, or squishy. As long as the exterior of this potato appears clean and regular, there's probably no harmful microbial growth inside of it. These strikingly white areas can be shaped due to potatoes being bruised, possibly in the field during the harvesting period. To sum up, you can eat it. There's also an issue of white smears coming out when we slice potatoes. You see the marks on the cutting board? Experts say that some potatoes have a higher level of water and starch content. As a result, your cutting board gets a bit messier than usual. No need to worry about it. I'm gonna carry on with another form of potato. Not because I love every version of potato and I can eat it in all meals from breakfast to dinner, but because I want to know, what are those brown spots on potato chips? Should we eat or toss them? Consider these as minor imperfections. They don't affect the safety of the chip. They're there again because of the bruises they get or as a result of frying. Sometimes you see that your garlic is trying to make more garlic out of itself. Yep, it has sprouted. The question is it okay to eat sprouted cloves, or should you toss them? If the green sprout is in the center of the garlic clove, that's fine. Be aware that the taste of the garlic will be stronger than it usually is. It will still be perfectly okay in a cooked meal, since it'll be alongside other ingredients. The taste shouldn't be that harsh. Can we eat an apple with worms? Most people can't even stand the idea of accidentally eating an apple with a worm, but that's a cultural thing. So the answer is yes, we can eat it. After all, worms add a little protein to the fruit. These animals don't carry any harmful parasites. They make their way into the apple. The entrance point of the fruit might have an off flavor since it got sort of rotten in time. Besides the taste, the rotten part is all safe to bite. What might not be so safe is eating the fallen apples though. Those have probably been hanging out on the ground for quite some time. This period might be enough for the harmful bacteria from the soil to sneak into the apple. There were some cases where people experienced health issues by drinking unpasteurized apple juice made from dropped apples. Yeah, the ones that interact with unhealthy bacteria. See you Saturday! You hang up and realize you have 2 days before the main family get-together of the year. Your shopping list is ready, so you head to the largest supermarket in town. You follow the list to the letter, grabbing everything you need as fast as possible. The cart is full of fruit, vegetables, dairy, meat, fish, bread. Well done you! 1 hour later, you get back home and proudly hand in the shopping bags to your grandma. She takes out the items one by one and frowns more and more at each of them. Turns out the fish and meat you picked aren't fresh at all, and those bananas and greens won't make it till Saturday either. Grandma says she'll save the day. You make a good snack to not go shopping hungry. Now you won't buy the stuff you don't need. Then you get in the car together to do it all over again. Smart shopping means cruising the perimeter of the store where you can find all the fresh and healthy stuff. Fruits, vegetables, dairy, meat, and fish. They normally reserve the center aisles for junk food. So, you decide to skip them altogether. Your first stop is the produce section. Grandma says you should spend the most time here. And it's a good thing you arrived before lunch. Most grocers get fresh produce when they just open, or later in the evening before they close. You reach out for packaged tomatoes, but Gran stops you. Prepackaged fruit and vegetables are usually more expensive. Plus, they don't let you check each item. A good ripe tomato can weigh double as much as an unripe one. It should have smooth and firm skin and smell like a tomato. No! Don't put that poor bruised thing into your cart. Bruises on produce are a perfect breeding ground for bacteria. Try to find firm cucumbers that have no blemishes or soft spots. The best ones are dark green. If you see yellow spots, it means the thing is overly ripe and will likely taste odd. The same goes for peppers. They must be of intense color with no stains. Now turn it upside down and count the bumps. 4 bumps means fewer seeds and better taste. 2 to 3 bumps mean bitter taste. The stem of a fresh pepper is always green, firm, and crispy. Take these potatoes with sprouts out of your cart right now. Go for the firm and smooth ones, without the wrinkled skin, soft dark spots, or cuts. Pick only green lettuce with no holes or brown edges. The brighter its shade of green, the better. Moving on to fruits and berries. Gran explains that a ripe watermelon will come with a dry brown stem. This one with a dark yellow must have been resting on the ground long enough to get sweet. The same's true for melons. The ones with a yellowish bark is sweeter, as it had received enough sunlight by the time they picked it. Check out the stem of the bunch before taking those bananas home. The stem must be green to light yellow and not turning brown. Only take single bananas if you want to eat them right away. They survive longer in clusters. Never judge a mango by its color. Instead, gently squeeze it. A ripe mango will give in a bit, and it will also have a fruity aroma at the stem end. Smaller fruit is normally sweeter, but that rule doesn't work for strawberries. Different sorts come in different sizes, so bigger ones can be yummy too. Their ripening ends once they've been picked up, so go for bright red berries with fresh green leaves. Those would look dry and wilt if they had picked the berries a long time ago. That lemon won't give you much juice. It's pale, which means it's an older one. This firm, unblemished one with smooth skin will be way better. It also feels heavier, and that's a good sign as well. You're shopping for a big event, but otherwise, you'd never buy too much produce at a time. If it's fresh and organic, it won't naturally last too long, and always opt for fruits and veggies that are in season. They'll be less expensive and of better quality. Next stop, honey. This one looks odd to you as it has those crystals at the bottom of the jar, but Grandma explains it's a sign of freshness. It's normal for honey to crystallize when the temperature drops. It's also a good sign it looks opaque. It means it's more natural and healthy and not pasteurized. You check the list and realize you still need some bread. You already know the best option is the whole grain kind. You pick it up and study the label. Made with whole grains won't do. This one that says whole wheat flour is good. The fewer ingredients, the better. If you can't pronounce the name of the additive, you don't want it in your bread. It shouldn't have artificial flavors, colors, or preservatives. You lightly press on the bread you just chose. Bingo! It goes back to its original shape, which means it's high quality. If you see your finger mark on it, it could have been previously frozen, or the baking process went wrong. You move towards the canned food section, and Gran jumps in your way. She's sure canned foods are bad for your health, as they contain a huge amount of sodium. You convince her to at least study the labels. You should always pick canned foods that don't have too much salt or sugar in them. The ones preserved in water or their own juice are the healthiest, as they have fewer artificial ingredients in them. You find some tuna packed in olive oil. The package is perfectly closed, so it's all good. You know you should never take a rusty can. It can be dangerous. Okay, looks like you've got everything you need, except for meat and dairy. You know you should always grab those last. They can spoil without a fridge if shopping gets too long. You make some room in your shopping cart to protect your fruit from raw meat juice, just in case. Red meat should be of dark color. Purple, red, and brown are all good. Pork should be the shade of light blushing pink. It should smell good. It can't be pungent in any way. If you see many fibers, it must be some tough meat with a strong flavor. Beef tenderloin won't have any grains because it's super tender. White flecks and streaks of fat throughout the muscle are another sign it's juicy and tender. If you aren't planning to cook meat straight away, pick the one with the latest best before date. You can still eat it safely after that date, but it tastes better before it. Dirty marks within the packaging are a red flag. Someone must have handled it with dirty hands. If the chicken you're about to buy has skin, it should be paler than the flesh, not yellow or light brown. The edges mustn't look dry. The cuts must be smooth and uniformly sized. If it's not butchered well, there might be small joints and bones in your lunch. Any chicken that has been in the container for more than 2 days should better stay on the shelf and not in your cart. Gran picks up a fish and stares it in the eye. She explains a good fish will have protruding ones with shiny black pupils. The skin of fresh fish should be silky, not sticky or dull. Squeeze the fillet. If there's a trace of your finger mark on it, it's no good. The final stop of the day, dairy products. You should reach for the back of the shelf to find the ones with the most distant expiration date. The same rule works for frozen foods, packaged foods, and eggs. Stockers locate the newer ones behind the older items. Grandma recommends choosing pasteurized milk. No raw products will land in your cart today. When milk goes through pasteurization, they heat it up to fight off disease-causing bacteria. It doesn't take away the nutritional value of the product, so no worries about that. When picking the best yogurt, pay attention to the label. The more words you see on it, the better. 3 basic ingredients are enough to make it work. The rest should be preservatives and sugar you don't need. Live and active cultures is something you want to see on the ingredients list. Don't forget to get some cheese. Not this one though. The soft kinds like ricotta, cream cheese, goat cheese, or shredded cheese shouldn't have any mold on them. It can penetrate inside easily. Some mold is fine on hard cheeses. You can carefully cut the area around it and still eat it. Yay! You're done with shopping. Time to go home and cook. You're about to go into an interview for your dream job. As you wait in the lobby, you realize you were so nervous in the morning that you forgot to eat breakfast. Now you're so hungry, you could eat a horse. Luckily, you were smart enough to pack some food in case you started starving. You open the bag of cheese puffs you brought, but then you realize, how are you going to eat these without getting cheesy orange dust all over your fingers and your nice outfit? Clever people on the internet have engineered the perfect genius solution. If you're not afraid of being a little unconventional, you can save your fingers from getting dust-coated by using a pair of chopsticks. They're long enough to reach down into the bag, so you can keep your hand safely outside of the cheesy, dusty abyss. But when you were opening the bag, a tear appeared on its side. The more you move it, the more the tear grows. You have to be careful because any further and your nice clothes will be covered in chip dust. Thankfully, the solution is just within reach. You spot a hole punch on the lobby desk. Using it, you can punch a hole in the bottom of the tear and stop it in its tracks. The round hole distributes force evenly, making a roadblock that helps prevent the bag from further ripping. Those tips are great, but they won't help you with the other chips you brought, which come in a tube. Luckily for that kind of packaging, all you need is a piece of printer paper. Curl it up and slip it into the tube around the chips. Now you can slide the entire stack out easily, opening the paper once it's out for a mess-free tray. As you're happily crunching away, you look around, suddenly aware that you're being very loud. You need to make a good first impression here after all. Good thing science has some answers on how to be quieter when eating one of the crunchiest snacks of all. Press each chip against the roof of your mouth using your tongue. The softness of your tongue will help to suppress the crunching noise. Curved-shaped chips are especially engineered to make the loudest crunch sound. So the best way to muffle the noise is to get rid of the shape first, then eat the chip as usual. But be warned, science has also claimed that eating your favorite crunchy snacks without hearing the iconic sound may mean you won't enjoy them as much. A professor of experimental psychology at Oxford University conducted a curious experiment. It showed that people's perception of flavor and taste are influenced not only by how food looks, but also by how it sounds. He had 20 participants eat chips while wearing headphones. He immersed their ears in crunching sounds at different volume levels and frequencies. Even though the chips they were munching on were all identical, the participants who were listening to louder, high-pitched crunches actually thought their chips were fresher and crispier. After all those salty snacks, you could go for a creamy treat. Through the window, you see there's an ice cream truck parked right outside. Perfect! You sneak a look at the clock. There's still plenty of time until your interview. Ice cream, here you come. You scan the menu on the truck. Obviously, a soft serve cone is way too risky. You can see it already. The slow drip melting down your hand right onto your nice clothes. Okay, no cone. So how about an ice cream sandwich? It's designed to keep you protected from sticky spills. And you're right, it is a good option. But there's a genius trick to make it even more foolproof. As you hold the sandwich, the soft cookie outside will warm up under your body heat, becoming tacky and sticky to your skin. We all know the chocolatey cookie goo that's left on our fingers, no matter how carefully we try to hold the sandwich as we eat. Adding a graham cracker on either side of the cookies will help you stay clean and pristine. Plus, it turns a regular ice cream sandwich into an upgraded cold s'more. It's an ice cream sandwich. As you're heading back inside, you spot another food truck, this one selling burritos. Well, you have lots of time and you're still pretty hungry. You order all your favorite fillings. When they hand you your order, you notice the burrito is wrapped in a second tortilla. This is a common, genius thing for restaurants to do, and while a lot of people don't know why, it can actually help you stay clean. While eating, unwrap the second tortilla and lay it open on a plate. Lean over it with each bite. Since burritos are notoriously good at dropping more of their filling than they keep in, this trick was devised to make the most of it. Anything that drops out will land on the second tortilla, which you can then wrap up into a second burrito when you're done with the first. This is the same reason packaged tortillas are often sold in even numbers. A delicious smell wafts from down the street. A stand selling corn on the cob. That pairs perfectly with a burrito. But there's no food that gets stuck in your teeth like corn. You didn't bring any floss, and it would be so embarrassing to go into the interview with a yellow kernel in your teeth. Luckily, you can have your corn and eat it too. Just use a chopstick. Skewer the corn kernels with it, going horizontally along a row. Then use one hand braced against the cob and pull the other end away. You will have a stack of juicy corn that you can eat right off the stick, avoiding any fibers between your teeth. Genius! Back inside, you check the time. There's still plenty of it, and you've managed to stay completely clean and perfectly presentable for your interview. A fruit bowl sits on the receptionist's desk, with a sign that says complimentary. You grab a wonderfully ripe kiwi. But this is an office building, so there are no spoons lying anywhere. Plus, cutting the fruit open and scooping the middle out can get really juicy. That's no worry though, because that's not the only way of eating a kiwi. Some kiwi enthusiasts suggest that the best way is to actually eat the fruit whole, just biting into it like an apple. The kiwi fruit skin is completely edible and is packed with additional nutrients. A recent study shows that eating the skin can triple the fiber intake compared to just eating the flesh. Plus, this way, you're not losing out on the vitamin C boost that it can give. The skin contains high concentrations of nutrients, especially fiber, folate, and vitamin E. Supposedly, eating the skin of a kiwi can increase its fiber content by up to 50%. If you can't handle the fuzzy texture, try rubbing the fruit against a pair of jeans. The friction created by the denim will easily remove the fuzz, making the fruit much more palatable. Try it out. Not only will you be less likely to be sprayed with sticky juice, but you might also get more nutritious bang for your buck. Oh,
Wow.
You just remembered that you packed a sandwich for lunch in the morning. Might as well have it now. But all that mustard and barbecue sauce, there has to be a way to hold sandwiches to make sure they make the least mess, right? Good news, there is. Sandwiches are best eaten with the claw hand shape. Hold the burger so that your thumbs and pinkies are on the bottom, leaving your other 3 fingers over the top of the bun. This positioning works like a clamp, holding all the ingredients in place. This way, you can take bites without worrying about half of the sandwich ending up on your lap. Well, after all that food, you're thirsty. The coffee maker in the corner is calling your name, but bringing it back to your seat without a spill is a test of agility that only a person with perfect balance can manage. Actually, you just need to understand a bit of physics. Have you ever wondered why it's so hard to walk with a cup of coffee without spilling it? It's because the length of a person's stride has almost exactly the right frequency to create rolling waves in a typical sized coffee mug. Each step rocks the liquid more, and it gets closer and closer to the mug's lip. Spills are most common between your 7th and 10th steps. We often try to walk quickly with our cups so that we can get to our destination before it spills over. But it turns out that the faster you walk, the closer your gait comes to the natural sloshing frequency of coffee. To avoid creating the waves that lead to spillage, walk slowly. Finally, it's time for your interview. Good thing you've kept completely clean while eating. You head towards the meeting room. On a table right outside, there are free powdered jelly donuts for everyone. How nice! A donut would be the best after that cup of coffee. Uh-oh, you're so distracted you don't notice your untied shoelace and go flying into the table. Donuts fly up and land right into your lap. So much for a good first impression.
Many people try to store different types of food in the fridge, just in case. It seems like the smartest decision to extend a product's lifespan. But it's not that simple. For some foods, the fridge can be harmful. For example, sauces. If the package doesn't say otherwise, it's better to keep them outside the fridge. You can put them in a cupboard that is far from your oven to protect sauces from temperature changes. The worst enemy of coffee beans is moisture. Special oil in coffee beans is responsible for that pleasant and cozy coffee smell. When you place your coffee in the fridge, condensation changes its entire cell structure and makes all the magic disappear. But if your goal is to get off caffeine, maybe it is a good idea to store your beans in the cold. Rumor has it that honey is an immortal food. You can store it almost forever, but make sure to do it properly. Keep honey in a cold and dark place, but don't put it in your fridge. Otherwise, it may crystallize and lose some of its major beneficial properties. Putting tomatoes into the fridge seems pretty harmless, but it's not the best idea. It will make tomatoes lose their delicious flavor because cold air slows down the natural ripening process. Thus, the thin membranes inside of the tomatoes get less juicy. And you don't want your salad to be watery and tasteless, do you? The best way to store tomatoes is in a well-ventilated box or basket at room temperature. If you want to keep sliced bananas from getting brown, use citrus juice. Just drizzle orange or lemon juice over the cut bananas. Unfortunately, this trick only works for a few hours. The perfect way to store your chocolate is inside your stomach. Just kidding. Keep it away from the fridge and store it in a cool, dark place. This way you don't only protect your dessert from your sweet tooth roommates, but also keep its attractive appearance. It's not a good idea to put your chocolate in the fridge because the temperature difference will create some condensed water on the surface of the chocolate bar. And keeping it away from the fridge is safer for your teeth. Chocolate tends to harden at low temperatures, which makes each bite more difficult. Don't keep your hummus at room temperature. It doesn't matter whether it's homemade or pasteurized. In both cases, it's not safe. If the hummus is traditional and doesn't contain any preservatives, its lifespan is up to 1 week. As for unopened supermarket hummus, you can store it in your fridge for about 3 months and for 1 week once you've opened it. Let's say you've just baked the perfect cookies. It's time to put them in a jar or container. Unfortunately, the cookies will eventually lose that precious out-of-the-oven feel and keep getting harder and harder as the days go by. But if you add a slice of bread to that same container, the cookies will keep their soft texture for much longer. That's because cookies will absorb moisture from the bread. People usually wrap cheese in plastic packages, but this solution is far from perfect. Plastic wrap attracts too much moisture, which creates an ecosystem for mold to grow and prosper. If you want to protect your cheese from this bitter scenario, sprinkle it with vinegar, but don't use more than a few drops. Otherwise, it'll ruin the original taste of your cheese. After that step, wrap your cheese tightly in wax paper and put it in the fridge. There are no special rules about eggs. It's safe to store them both inside and outside the fridge, as long as their expiration date is fine. It's important to make sure the temperature is stable and consistent. If your choice is to put eggs in the fridge, don't keep them on the side shelf. To protect them from temperature fluctuations, put the eggs deeper in the fridge. Also, experts don't recommend removing the eggs from their package. These containers are actually meant to extend the lifespan of the eggs. Yes, the temperature is not equal all over your fridge. The shelves on the door are the warmest area, for example. And the closer the shelf is to the freezer, the lower the temperature gets. So, if you want to create perfect food distribution inside your fridge, don't skip the specific storage recommendations that are mentioned on some packages. If you store a loaf of bread in the supermarket package, get ready to see some mold in a couple of days. It's better to keep your bread in a firmly closed box with a little bit of salt. This tip will protect it from the mold. Also, avoid keeping bread in the fridge because cold air will make it stale very quickly. But when you need to save bread for a long time, you can put it in the freezer. This way, it'll stay fresh for up to 6 months. If you want to keep sliced cucumbers from drying out, put them in an airtight container and pour fresh water in it. Don't store them in the fridge for more than a week. As for the whole cucumbers, keep in mind that they rot in the cold air way faster than at room temperature. If you want to keep them fresh for as long as possible, store them outside the fridge. Avocado is a tricky fruit with tricky storage rules. If your avocado is hard and not fully ripe yet, keep it away from the fridge because cold air will slow down the ripening process. Bananas emit high levels of ethylene, which helps avocados ripen faster. So, if you want to accelerate the process, put it in a bag with 1 or several bananas. At the same time, if your avocado is soft and ripe, storing it in the fridge will keep it from going bad. Some people prefer wrapping cut avocado in plastic wrap together with a slice of onion. This tip helps the fruit to stay fresh longer. Another way is to cover it with olive oil. Keep in mind that cut avocado can be stored in the fridge for no longer than 3 days. Keep your onions and garlic away from the fridge. Low temperatures will cause mold way faster. If you want to keep them fresh for a long time, store them in a cool, dry place. For example, in the kitchen cupboard. And if you don't mind some country house style in your kitchen, tie the onions to one another and keep them hanging. Also, avoid storing oranges and other citrus fruits in the fridge. Unfortunately, low temperatures make these fruits less tasty and less beneficial for your health. You can store them in a fruit bowl, on a shelf, or kitchen table. Don't worry, this won't speed up their rotting. Just like many other vegetables, eggplants don't like low temperatures. In the fridge, they get soft and lose their good qualities way faster. Keep these veggies away from direct sunlight in some dry space at room temperature. If you've sliced an apple, but you don't want to eat it right away, here's a tip. Put a rubber band around the slices to hold them together. It'll keep the apple from turning brown. This fruit will stay fresh and crispy for as long as a whole month when stored in a moisture-resistant bag in a fridge. It's advised to avoid washing apples before storing them, as it might cause spoilage. Never put olive oil inside your fridge. If you've made this mistake before, you've probably noticed those weird white pieces inside the oil. Don't worry, it's not toxic. In fact, low temperatures in the fridge cause water condensation, which looks like unpleasant impurities. It's better to keep your olive oil at room temperature and far from direct sunlight. Watermelons and other melons, kept at room temperature, contain more beneficial nutrients and antioxidants compared to those kept in the fridge. But once you cut your watermelon, it's better to store it in the fridge. Use plastic wrap to cover the cut side tightly and replace it each time you cut your watermelon. Also, you can cut your melon or watermelon in smaller slices and store them in an airtight container in your fridge for up to 1 week. Freezing ginger will allow you to keep it fresh for 2 to 9 months and maintain its quality. You can also grate it in advance so you can take 1 spoonful at a time. This will save you time, especially on those busy days when you need to prepare something fast.
Have you ever wondered why things are the way they are? Like, why are there holes in a takeout box? Don't worry, you're about to find out. Beanies, with all those fluffy pom-poms, are easily the most important accessories of wintertime. Turns out the real reason why they or other hats have pom-poms was not to make a fashion statement in the past. One of the theories says that they were there to provide safety. French sailors used to wear hats with pom-poms so they wouldn't hit their heads on the walls or low ceilings and hurt themselves if they lost their balance in a rough sea. So it wouldn't be wrong to call pom-poms head bumpers. Ever notice those extra eyelets hiking boots have on their sides? One thing is for sure, even though it kind of makes sense, they're not there to provide ventilation for your feet so that they don't smell. They're there to prevent your shoes from moving and causing you to slip and fall while you're hiking, climbing, or descending a hill. When you're going on your next adventure, make sure to tie your laces through them to tighten your boots for a better fit. You're at a barbecue party with your friends. The host serves cold drinks and long neck bottles to everyone. You think to yourself, why do bottles have long necks anyway? There are 2 reasons for that. The first one is to reduce the cost of packaging. The narrower the neck is, the smaller cap you need, and the second reason is to make sure that your drink stays cool longer. When you hold the bottle from its neck, not its body, the heat coming from your hand won't warm up the rest of your drink. The color of plastic tags on bread packages indicates which day of the week the bread was baked. Even though some companies have their own color codes, it generally goes like this: Monday, blue; Tuesday, green; Thursday, red; Friday, white; and Saturday, yellow. So pick accordingly to get the freshest bread. You're feeling too lazy to cook dinner, so you go to your favorite restaurant to order takeout. You come home feeling excited that you're about to have a delicious meal. You open the takeout box only to find out that your food became soggy because of the moisture built up inside of it. Well, this secret purpose is going to help you prevent that from happening ever again. Notice the perforated tabs in the corners of the container's lid? You need to push them down to allow the steam to escape from the holes. If you have a hot meal, that is. If you're one of those lucky people who have a dishwasher at home, you're going to feel even luckier once you learn what else you can wash in it. Aside from making your dishes clean and shiny, it can also clean up your makeup brushes for you. Just place them inside the silverware tray to remove all the dirt and excess product that built up amongst the bristles. You went to the farmer's market and bought some fresh fruits and vegetables. You want to wash the dirt off them, especially potatoes, before placing everything in the fridge. Don't waste your time washing them all one by one. Place them in your dishwasher and set it to the rinsing cycle with cold water. Don't use detergent for this, though. Are you one of the many people who use the drawer under their oven or stove as storage? Sorry to inform you, but storing skillets, cookie sheets, and muffin pans is not their purpose. It's called a warming drawer, and it's meant to keep your cooked dishes warm and delicious. So, if your guests are running late, just put that casserole you've made in it until they arrive. Keep in mind that not all oven models have this feature. Some drawers are for broiling, and some can indeed be used as storage. Check with the manual to make sure what yours is. Oranges, lemons, and avocados come in mesh bags most of the time. When you go back home from the grocery store, you probably throw those into the trash, don't you? But did you know that you can also use them as a pot scrubber? You just need to tie them up. Then you can get to cleaning those dirty dishes, pots, and pans. You can even turn them into single-use scrubbers for other kitchen appliances or your sink. If you're at a store looking for new hangers to organize your closet, we suggest you buy the ones made of cedar wood instead of plastic ones. First of all, cedar wood acts as a natural repellent. Pests like moths, fleas, lice, silverfish, ants, gnats, and ticks won't come near your clothes and closet if you use them. The second reason why you should invest in them is that they absorb unwanted odors from your clothes as well as moisture. And this feature helps prevent mold, so you can wear your favorite dress or suit for longer. It's that time of week again, Taco Tuesday. You invite a couple of friends over to enjoy some homemade tacos, but even though you have the recipe for making tortillas, you don't know how to give them that perfect taco shell shape. Well, this hidden use might help. If you have a muffin tray at home, then you have all you need. Just flip it upside down and place the small tortillas in between the cups. Bon appetit! If you love sewing and making your own clothes, then you must be used to using those tomato pin cushions, which almost always come with a small strawberry tassel. But why is it there? First of all, you can push the needle you're currently using or your favorite one in there so that you don't need to search for it amongst the other needles all the time. And secondly, it's filled with emery, which will help clean and sharpen your needles once they go in there. Are you a Team Ketchup or Team Mayo? Ketchup fans must have noticed the number 57 on those Heinz ketchup bottles. That number is placed where it is on the bottle for a very specific reason. You must have struggled with getting ketchup out of the bottle at least once in your life, and at that moment, you probably tried shaking it until the right amount of ketchup fell onto your plate, right? Well, no need to do that anymore. Just firmly tap on the spot where 57 is written on the bottle neck, and you can get ketchup out of the bottle way quicker. You might have noticed that there are two holes in an oil can where you are filling it up or pouring it. And you maybe thought to yourself, that must be there to make it easier for me to pour it into smaller containers. But that's not the case. That hole is there to prevent oil from spilling all over, or glugging, so to say. So you need to uncap it before you pour oil from the larger hole to prevent wasting it or having to clean everywhere. Have you ever taken classes to improve your typing speed on a keyboard? If your answer is yes, then you might be disappointed to learn that keyboard manufacturers most likely wanted to slow you down. A popular theory says that's why the letters on a keyboard are arranged randomly and not in alphabetical order. The reason for that goes all the way back to typewriters. Their keys used to be arranged in alphabetical order, which allowed people to write really fast. And because of that, the keys would jam and tangle up easily, and they wanted to avoid that. That's how we ended up having the QWERTY keyboards we have today. Here's a bonus hidden feature for you before you leave. The clock app on your iPhone shows you what time it is on the little screen icon as well.